Well, hello there. I'm fucking very sorry, all you paying customers there, because I know that I fucking neglected you, and I'm really fucking terrible about that. But I'm here now, and some of you might have heard I had this piece out here titled "A Warning to Cricket Slick's Next Boyfriend," right? And I hope you understand what I'm doing here. I'm not trying to be a fucking petty dick. I think if you read the thing, I'm genuinely concerned that she's gonna fucking do this to somebody else, and that's why I'm putting it out there. It's not this is not fucking revenge porn, and but it's crazy to me. I've been listening to this phone call that's on the thing, and I'm watching her. I'm listening to her fucking avoid responsibility perpetually, right? And perhaps what I really gotta fucking do, and. I'll do that. All right. I'm gonna make another thing where I go through that and I start identifying patterns of behavior. Okay. Somebody remind me if you don't mind. If you don't see that in a week, fucking start getting on my fucking case, because I need to critique that recording. Because it's really fucking classic behavior, honestly. Like, she's even talking about, like, I literally go from, I'm explaining to her that politics, you've probably heard me say this before. People get involved in politics. They're almost always, they're trying to fucking change the rest of the world because they're unhappy with themselves, right? And we're talking about the dysfunctionality of people, especially in extremist movements. Movements which are perceived as extreme, right? We're often, not the fucking mainstream politics. Okay, I'm not calling us something negative. But you get in fringe politics, and shockingly enough, it doesn't even matter if your fucking ideas are good or not. You're going to be surrounded by fucking maniacs, right? And the reason is because fucking we get our fucking paradigm shattered, right? Like, we have our ideas are fucking prone to change because the fucking world is more chaotic for us or something, perhaps, right? Anyway, so she interrupts me as I'm trying to fucking explain this to her. And she tells me, that's what I loved so much about Stefan Molyneux, because he talked about trying to address your own stuff by confronting these other people, your family members and this stuff, right? And it's just like every single thing, every word that came out of her mouth was, yes, someone else. Yes, someone else. And I didn't even pick up on it during the course of the conversation. So I realized she was avoiding. But as I'm listening to the call, I'm realizing just there's every word every point has to go to somebody. Literally, she doesn't take anything in for a second, except to say, I realize that, and then she goes and blames somebody else, right? I was like, what's the other fucking example? All right, I'm not coming up with the other fucking example right now, but she doesn't take any fucking responsibility for it in any case. And the thing is that, alright, here's the other thing I wanted to fucking talk to you about, alright? So I left this hanging on the show the other day that, there's a discussion about domestic violence in the relationship. And I was like, I probably shouldn't just leave that hanging out there, right? And so I had a conversation with her, very strong opinions on abortion, right? Like honestly, I feel like I should have been able to fucking make her not do that. I should have had the legal authority to prevent her from doing that. I honestly believe that. And so, I think it's fucking really fucking unfortunate that I don't have the legal authority to do that, because she'd be a lot happier right now if I did. She's a fucking lying fucking asshole. But she's generally, believe me when I tell you, I know that she's really fucking upset. But she's fucking crazy, right? She's destroying her fucking life. She needs somebody to fucking stop her from doing that, and nobody will, right? Like, she's literally begging someone to fucking save her, and the only way that she can be saved is through force. Because she will go out and there's nothing. She will fucking violate every fucking verbal boundary that you give her. If there's not something physically stopping her, she will escalate without concern for repercussions. And so, you could say that I shouldn't get involved with this woman or whatever. Okay, it's almost too obvious to have to state. I understand that. But at the same time, Like, these people exist, and there's a fucking lot of them, right? And like, and I feel bad for them, and I feel like I honestly feel like it's because fucking men are abdicating their responsibility in the society. That woman is begging for fucking authority, right? She's begging to be fucking stopped from her terrible actions, and nobody will do it for her. And so she does. She finds herself incapable. This is my opinion of it, all right? You know, and I'm analyzing her, and I've talked to her about this, and she agrees with me, or at least she says she does, that what happens is she's doing this in all of her relationships, and she's incapable of respecting the men that she dates because they won't enforce the goddamn boundaries, right? And, you know, I had a fucking discussion with her that you know, I am no longer convinced that it's 100% always wrong to use force in a relationship. I'm fucking bigger and stronger than you. I make better decisions than you. I'm smarter than you. I'll fucking control the finances, and I'll tell you what goddamn time it is. And if you fucking make me, I will force you to good behavior. You know, and I'm not talking about beating the fucking shit out of people, but like, you know, if you want to leave the house, and I say no, and you're like, fuck you, I'm leaving. Guess what? I can stop you from doing that. And if you think that you're just gonna fucking rush towards a door, you know, and that's gonna fucking solve the problem, it's not you rushing towards the door that's fucking getting you by the door. It's the fact that you're gonna call the fucking cops on me, right? You don't have the fucking capacity to go out that thing. You're coming at me because you know you're gonna call fucking law enforcement on me, psychopath. What's wrong with you? I genuinely think it's fucking unjust. And you can say that fucking people shouldn't, you know, like I said, you shouldn't have gotten involved with her, find a better woman, whatever. You know, she's fucking 9 years younger than me, she's fucking beautiful, she's a millionaire. She's fucking never been on birth control, she says, because she fucking takes her body so seriously. She's making me fucking, you know, bought a fucking juicer and all this shit, and is, you know, compelling me to go to the gym and everything. You know, it's fucking, you know, fucking a lot of good reasons to do this, I'm saying, you know. A lot of fucking warning signs too, but I'm just stop acting like it's an easy fucking decision there, dick. But there's a lot of people like this. I fucking, like I was saying on the show the other day, and I apologize to the women who listen to this, and you think I'm talking down to you, and I am. You know, it's not that I'm not. It's not, but I'm not trying to be mean to you, right? Like I'm genuinely trying to understand something, because I don't think that you fucking process information the way I do, and so that means that fucking when we have different interpretations of how the fucking world is supposed to work, one of us is going to fucking impose our will on the other. And, you know, we want to do everything in our fucking power to avoid that, but this is the fucking negotiation of all goddamn human behavior is, you know, what are the rules under which violence occurs? And it's like, we don't want to pretend like that's not a part of, like, the relationships between men and women. You know, she fucking told me. You know, she's fucking. You know what? I'm gonna read the goddamn email to you. Hang on a second. I'm gonna fucking do this. Okay, here we go. I apologize for that. There's a couple of things here. I was thinking to myself in a car, about 3 times I've gotten angry with you. Last night, Monday, to go to handle the passport, and at the hotel at the motel in New York. Last night I was drunk and I lost control. Obviously not a good thing for a man to do, even if we're dealing with these extraordinary circumstances. I appreciate you understanding the predicament I'm in and letting it slide. I promise you this will not be a normal feature of our relationship. Monday, with the passport thing, as we discussed, was an intentional act for the purpose of achieving an outcome. It was successful. Well, it got you to find out that the goal could not be accomplished in any case. I do not like doing this, and I will attempt to refrain from it in all but the most important of circumstances. I will appreciate your assistance in avoiding this ugly necessity, and I'll talk about that necessity more momentarily. At the motel in New York,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the first time I raised my voice to you. My physical proximity to you, your unfamiliarity with the medications I was on, and the fact that this was new to our relationship obviously frightened you while you were already stressed out. And this set in course a series of events that has drained a great deal of life from both of us. Obviously, we're going to have to make sure and not repeat those events. I should clarify that the medications had nothing to do with that outburst, as evidenced by Monday's very similar, even if distant, event. In fact, I held my tongue several times during our relationship, specifically because I knew the meds had a potential to increase my capacity for aggression, and I refrained from allowing my anger to show for the fear that I might make a mistake. I am no longer on those medications, and hopefully you'll come to know me in that condition so we have a baseline to go back to in the future. As I mentioned, last night's outburst was not something I'm proud of. I consider it a failure on my part, and I will do my best not to repeat it. The hotel in New York and the phone call on Monday were measured and intentional acts which had dramatically different outcomes. The timing and circumstances of these were obviously different, and I don't want to downplay the importance of them, but for the sake of time, I'll skip to a more relevant difference. You have expressed to me that you felt physically intimidated in New York. Clearly, it is more difficult to intimidate one by phone from behind a sovereign border and hundreds of miles away than it is from across a small room where you've been watching me lift weights. Had you been in proximity to me during Monday's incident, I suspect you may have felt similarly intimidated. This scenario is likely to repeat itself from time to time, and I want to try to understand it so we can avoid escalating conflict to a point where something irreparable happens. I'm no longer convinced that physical coercion is always inappropriate in the home. It is an ugly necessity, which is entirely too frequently mishandled or abused, but that doesn't mean it should be entirely eliminated. This is the moment when I read your email and opened up Stefan's video. I haven't watched it yet, so this was about France banning spanking. That was a side note, which is actually relevant to the discussion, but I'm not going to go into it. I honestly hope I never hurt you physically or emotionally. We know that in a relationship like ours, emotional pain is inevitable. Physical force is not inevitable, but it is a factor, and I have come to suspect that society's effort to pave over it are misguided. Whether or not a man ever uses force against his lover, I imagine she is always aware that this is a possibility, at least in cases where a man is not a weakling. I suspect this is hard-coded in our evolutionary psychology for reasons which I hope are too obvious to need explaining. Try to ignore or alter the nature of human beings through government policy has often has catastrophic outcomes, as we have seen with all manner of social welfare programs and unnatural redistributions of social power, such as family courts. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong about what I'm going to say here, but I'm not certain you would have even been aware of it. I honestly think you were trying to get me to hit you in New York. I honestly believe that if I had... I'm sorry, give me a fucking scroll down this thing. I honestly believe that if I had, you would have corrected your behavior, and we would not be in the situation we're in today. I believe you would have come and met my parents. We probably would have not enjoyed ourselves very much, and then gone back to New Hampshire for our happily ever after. When I failed to live up to your expectations, you escalated and escalated and escalated to the point of irreparable damage. I'm not saying that this was your intention. I think it was instinctive, just as instinctive of me to use force. Since force is frowned upon by society and the legal system, I am compelled to be aware of and tame these instincts, whereas our society and legal system condones your actions, and so you have not been so compelled to tame them. If I'm right about this, it would seem that some responsible manhandling of you would have been the less costly option. You would be happier today if I had prevented you from doing what you did. Of course, if I had done it then, neither of us could possibly have known the alternative, and you might have understandably thought me to be some kind of simple abuser. You could have called the police and had me arrested and disarmed. In a marriage, it could result in divorce and child custody battles. I will be straightforward here. It is not outside the realm of possibility that I will use force against you. If you enter into this relationship, I will take it as your consent to those terms. I would never seek to injure you, but I will do what is necessary to restore order and protect our family. I do not take this responsibility lightly. I do not enjoy having this obligation placed upon my shoulders. But I will not allow a repeat of last summer's crises, nor anything resembling them, and I will risk incarceration if I must to prevent such horrors in the future, because if I cannot protect my family, then I have little use for freedom. I swear on my life and everything I hold dear that I will love our children like no father has ever loved his children before. I felt the loss of life with every child of mine that has ever been aborted, and I genuinely believe this will give me a greater appreciation for our living children than most men could possibly have the capacity for. There is nothing I will not do to assure their happiness and safety. I will see to it that they have every advantage, the best education, the best food, clothing, toys, and all the rest. But if I become convinced that physical force is the only way I can prevent one of them from falling into drug addiction, ending up in trouble with the law, or otherwise meeting some kind of irreparable harm, then I will use physical force. I will differentiate this from spanking, since physical force is required to hold the child still for the... I will differentiate this from spanking, since the physical force required to hold the child still for spanking is force enough to avoid any immediate danger. Inflicting pain for punishment is a different subject, which I'll discuss with you in more detail later on, but I tend to view this negatively. I do not believe any of this to be a violation of the non-aggression principle. In your case, you are knowingly entering into an agreement with me that I become obligated to protect you, and that this is the condition of protection. Same as any dispute resolution agency might have in the absence of the state, I cannot promise to lay down my life to protect you free of conditions. If I am obligated to use physical force against threats to our family, then I necessarily have to deal with internal threats as well as external ones. Our children clearly have no capacity to knowingly enter into such agreements, but they are nonetheless entered by simple reality of their existence. I cannot protect them free of condition any more than I can protect you in such a way. Our children are confined, carried, fed, clothed, and moved about without their explicit consent all day, and if we were to do any of these things to an adult without permission, it would obviously be kidnapping, assault, false imprisonment, and other non-aggression principle violations. Just as I do not consider it a violation of the non-aggression principle to strap a child into a car seat, I do not consider it such a violation to physically stop them from playing with fire or drugs or engaging in other life-threatening activity. And if the state sees fit to jail me for protecting my children, then this only confirms my hatred of that institution as righteous. As for avoiding this ugliness, I ask for your help by knowing the difference between As for avoiding this ugliness, I ask for your help by knowing the difference between a command and a request. I will very rarely command you to do something. I will almost always pose it as a question, such as, "Sweetie, can you get me a cup of coffee, please?" And while I think it would be best for us to honor one another's requests, there are obviously going to be times when, "Babe, I'm busy, can you do it yourself?" is obviously acceptable. This is obviously very different from, "Cricket, get the kids and get in the car right now." I might issue a command like that for any number of reasons, but one of the reasons might be to help me deal with a potential threat. There may be times when I perceive that threat is just me. There may be times when that perceived threat is just me overreacting to something, but in order for me to do my job, I will require your cooperation before we find out if the threat is real. I will not limit this to immediate threats of violence against our family. I would also issue commands in matters pertaining to our finances or property or our social standing or some other thing I perceive to be necessary for the well-being of our family. If I am compelled to remind you that this is not a request if I am compelled to remind you that this is not a request but a command, that this is a conflict escalation, and the next escalation might be intimidation or, in extreme cases, force. Long story short, there is nothing I will not do to protect our family. Nothing. I will do what I perceive to be necessary, even if it makes you scared or upset or causes me to suffer. I will do my best to be trained and educated on alternatives to force. I will use language, money, and every other tool at my disposal to control our circumstances to avoid force becoming a necessity. But when it becomes necessary, I will use it. Please let me know your thoughts on this. I appreciate if you must think about it for a while. Now, you know, you might think, oh my God, he fucking just said that he was gonna, he just described the circumstances under which he was gonna hit this girl. She better run to the police. Well, she replies this. My heart is almost beating out of my chest reading this email. It is everything I want and need from a man. Intuitively, I can feel it deep down to the core of my being, a sense of relief and comfort and security. I really do think you are onto something with the situation in New York and me subconsciously pushing you to take control of the situation. It makes perfect sense and intuitively feels right because I've had panic freak out attacks like that in previous relationships, and it ends because basically nobody can tame me or even try to because of all the legal and other reasons you mentioned. So I think I think that is what I'm doing. Testing your authority somehow. I was so scared and kept escalating to the point of destruction, and I've done this before in my life. And I have never had a man or father give me the guidance, so I needed to freak out until I almost destroyed myself, then hid in shame and guilt and smoke weed for everything, smoke weed for ruining everything again and not knowing why or how. This has been the trap/pattern I've been caught in since I was 14. It makes perfect sense to me, everything you're saying. It makes me want to run into your arms and melt. She quotes me, I will differentiate this from spanking, since the physical force required to hold a child still for the spanking is force enough to avoid any immediate danger. Inflicting pain for punishment is a different subject, which I'll discuss with you in more detail later on, but I tend to view this negatively. Yes, I agree with this, and I think it's an excellent point. She says, I also like your plan for avoiding such escalations and conflicts in knowing the difference between a command and a request. It makes me feel secure, although I'm sure there will be times I don't like it or have a hard time with something, but I know this is in my best interest, and it's what I need from my man, so I promise to honor you always, even if I'm unsure. I still have many more thoughts about this, but I want to talk in person or on the phone about it, and it's almost fine. Yeah. Oh, and I got Beal here. I tell her, I'm really happy about your response. As you might imagine, I was very nervous about saying this because I do not want to risk scaring you away before you even get here. But I'm very serious about building a family with you, and I know this was a concern you had, which might have been exacerbated by my behavior last night. You know, you may have my behavior last night was I got drunk and I fucking yelled at her on the phone. But honestly, like I was drunk, but at the same time, she was exactly what I'm fucking getting at here is she was trying to get me to, right? Like she's agreeing with me, she's provoking me to violence. And so I was drunk and she was provoking me to violence and I fucking lashed out at the woman who aborted my child, right? That's what the reference is. And I regret doing that, but primarily because I was fucking drunk at the time and not necessarily for fucking yelling at her. Okay, so you may have heard me remark on the show today that when a man finds himself in a position where violence is necessary, some other failure earlier in the series of events is probably to blame. I will do everything in my power to avoid those failures, and when those failures occur, I will learn from them and correct my future actions based upon the lesson. For example, I have learned from our trip to New York and the events that followed that it was a very big mistake to get you pregnant as soon as I did. That was part of a larger failure. That I was attempting to impress you and show you that I was prepared for commitment, rather than showing strength. I was displaying my insecurities. Consciously or not, women have the capacity to pick up on such weaknesses, and they rightly punish it. This is part of why I'm being firmer and more direct with you right now. Instead of trying to win you, I will rather play my part as best I can. Confident you'll be satisfied with my performance. Thanks in large part to you, we will have the resources to avoid these types of situations where other people would not be able to. We'll be able to choose our child's education and environment, unlike our less fortunate countrymen who are compelled to drop their kids off at whatever public school they happen to be living near, for example. I would never want to hurt or coerce my wife or child. I consider it my responsibility to protect you, not only from harm, but from fear. It would obviously be a terrible failure on my part if you or our children lived in fear of me. My failures haunt me, so I work diligently to avoid them. I will be a source of comfort and security for you and our children. The fact you understand this and trust me with this awesome responsibility means a lot to me, and I love you for it. Well, yeah, and it goes on, but This is what I was getting at about the domestic violence thing. In any case, I know I fucking left that out there. Like, hey, I was talking about whether it was okay to hit you or not, and I just like fucking blew by that subject on the end like an idiot. Like that was gonna fucking. And nobody even called me on it. You guys are crazy. Nobody called the phone and was like, hey, wait a second, you want to fucking fill me in on what you meant by you were discussing domestic violence and it turned out poorly? Now, you might take some issue with what I've said here. I wouldn't be surprised if you did, and I'm really interested in your feedback on it because it was, it's a concept. It's genuinely a concept that I'm just exploring. I'm not trying to fucking hurt people, and I'm certainly not suggesting that any of you should run out and start fucking hitting your girlfriends. Or the other way around. Am I right, fucking ladies? It was a fucking really douchey thing. All right, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on it, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about it. Thanks, guys.